Alpha Echo, come again?
Hi there. Welcome to this video for the 21st weekend since lockdown in the UK. It's been one hell of a week actually for me this week. I started feeling unwell last Saturday and just basically started feeling a bit rough, and then by and into Sunday, and then by Sunday night I'd sort of started coughing sort of almost uncontrollably, and that continued until Monday morning. And I have a daily Skype call with some people that work for me. We have a call every day just to sort of keep up to date and what have you. And we had a meeting scheduled at work for an hour or so in the middle of this week. And basically they turned around to me and said, I'm not being funny, Clint, but the way you're sort of coughing, we would prefer it if you went for a COVID test before we agreed to meet face to face, which is sort of fair enough. So I did that. So after the call, I got online and quickly booked a test and at a test centre in a place called Kidlington, which is just a few miles from where I am now. I grew up there actually. Kidlington's actually, it was known to be the largest village in Europe. It may still be. I can't remember what the population is, but I think it's around sort of 20,000. Someone will look that up probably. Anyway, I drove to the park and ride there, and it was a bit of an experience. When you get there, you've got to keep your windows closed in the car, and you arrive and someone sort of holds up a sort of banner with a phone number on it, and you ring that phone number with your mobile, and then it's basically their mobile number, and that's how they communicate with you. And then you sort of drive around until you get to the sort of the bit, the awning bit, or the bit that looks a bit like a tent, and then eventually, after an explanation through a sort of crack in the window, you wind the window down, and they stick a swab down into your sort of throat for about 10 seconds, and then they put the same swab up your nose for 15 seconds and have a sort of good old route around. And I said to the guy doing the test, now he had a face visor on, gloves, overall, everything, like a smock type thing, he had all the personal protection equipment on. I said, if that you're going to make me sneeze, and he said, well, if you do, obviously look away and close the window. So anyway, 10 seconds into swabbing my nose, I said I'm going to sneeze, and I started to wind up. I pressed the button for the electric window, and the window started to wind up, but not in time. I sort of turned away from him and sneezed, and he literally ran for his life, and it puts everything into sharp relief. I mean, so that was the test, and I'd also kind of like lost my sense of taste as well, or nearly completely. But that does happen to me when I get a cold. If I get a bit blocked up, I do tend to lose my sense of taste. But anyway, then it had to wait for a couple of days to get the results. So you kind of sat around wondering for a couple of days, whether you've got it or not, and that was actually quite bad. It does bring everything into sharp relief. It just makes you realise that all of the efforts and measures that are being taken to socially distance and to avoid the pandemic sort of spreading further really brings it home to you. So it is definitely all worthwhile. Anyway, the good news is that the test result came back negative, which obviously I was very happy about. It just makes you realise that why we've been stuck at home working. Well, a lot of us have been stuck working from home for 4 or 5 months. This is the 21st weekend, it's made me realise that I just want to be really, really careful to avoid actually contracting that virus, because it was bad enough to have symptoms and then a test and then have to wait for the result. So that's the story of my week this week. So here we are at the weekend. What am I up to? Well, you'll have seen my Diamond X300 antenna probably on a previous video, and there it is. And so one thing I've been doing this afternoon, and I'll be doing over the weekend, is I'm continuing to test that antenna. Now, I did a video actually I got some help from M0UHF. Jeff is a member of the Harwell Amateur Radio Society, and you'll have seen that video. Most people seem to like it. One or two didn't particularly approve. It's interesting how some people will just literally go out of the way to post kind of negative stuff when you've got like 4,000 videos and it's 99.999% positive. They post once and they sort of, find fault. But anyway, we demonstrated that the X300 has gain where my homebrew collinear doesn't, and we demonstrated that very clearly on SSB. But of course, that's just a one-off, and so to really compare it, I'm using FT8, and I've been running FT8 this afternoon. And what I'm looking for really is a comparison on the kind of envelope for how far my signal's getting on 50 watts. And you can see, actually, I think this is a first actually that I've been decoded in Denmark, but that happened 25 minutes ago. I'm getting into France and Belgium, so I think overall the performance of this antenna is sort of demonstrably better than my homebrew antenna. But you can see that this is FT8 is a really good way of kind of determining that, because you can just leave it running for hours, and I know what a typical envelope for my homebrew antenna looked like, basically a bit like this, and getting into sort of northern France and sort of Benelux really. So it's the performance of this antenna at the moment is similar, looks similar, probably a little bit better. I did actually get in. I did get into Scandinavia actually on 2 meters. This is on 2 meters. When I did this yesterday, and that I'd not achieved before. So the initial signs are good, and that it is outperforming my old antenna. But I'm just going to carry on running FT8 for a while and see what happens. So that's a good test. FT8 is good anyway, because it's something you can do with the radio in the background. You haven't got to be there looking at it constantly. It's also a very good tool for determining propagation and band conditions. Said before that if I run FT8 on 20 meters, if I haven't had 70 decodes in the first minute, the band's basically dead. So it's good for that as well. And it's just a really, really useful tool as much as anything else. So there you go. The other thing I'm doing, and this was actually inspired by another Harwell ARS member, another 2E0, the midweek sked that we have. I was doing that and working another 2E0 during that sked, and he mentioned that he'd been working stations. He mentioned he'd been working stations in South America, and he specifically mentioned a Brazilian station that he'd worked, and also North American. And it made me realise that that since I've been licensed at the intermediate level, I've only made one North American contact, which was last year, and two North American contacts, one West Virginia and one Canada. But I don't actually spend a lot of time working 20 meters and 40 meters, and it just made me realise that I've not put my new radio, the 7300, sort of through its paces really in that respect, and I probably should. So this weekend I'm going to spend some time on 20 meters in particular, and sort of try and figure out where I am with DX. And I've got two options here actually. At the moment, I've got my end-fed wire, top band wire, plugged into this radio, because it also matches perfectly on 80, 40 and 20 meters. But I'm also going to try my G5RV, and I don't know if you remember actually, but I increased the height of my end-fed wire, which is the wire below. There's two. You can see two antennae there. The one sort of going from the center to the right is one side of my G5RV, and then the antenna underneath it, which is at its midpoint, is the end-fed wire from top band. And I'm going to try that, and I'm also going to try the G5RV on 20 meters and see if I can work some DX. I did actually work what I consider to be DX. A few weeks back with the ELAD. Yeah, I worked at a station in Russia, the other side of Moscow, with 5 watts using this thing here, and yeah, I'm going to try my hand at some DX on 20 meters with the 7300, and those 2 antennas this weekend, and see what happens basically. But you know, I do all the, I enjoy the skeds actually. They're good because it's Harwell have such a great bunch of people. It's enjoyable just to do the sked and just sort of have a natter for an hour and a half or 2 hours. And I know that, and I think some of us only kind of do that, unless I'm wrong. I found myself not spending that much time on the HF bands, just sort of trying to work DX really. And well, it's because I've got so many other things to do. Do you know what I mean? It's like one of the subs said the other week that my shack is kind of unique in that it's kind of half ham radio and half kind of like shortwave listening or DX thing, which is actually true. And although, you know, the channel is busy, and that I'm busy recording and uploading videos, it's not that I don't have time to do the ham radio stuff and work the bands. It's just that, you know, at 10, 11 o'clock at night, well, not for 20 meters necessarily, but it's just, you know, having to work and, you know, the kids and everything else. It's just it sometimes feels like there's not enough hours in the day basically. So but no better reason to get on HF than with the 7300. And interestingly, a chap that we were talking to today, he's 93 years old actually. His call sign I think is G3GGG. He's buying one of these, and I'm going to help set it up for him, because he wants to get back onto HF. He's been listening on airband I think for many years, but he's getting back on HF with a 7300, which was his choice actually, but we agree with him, and an MFJ 949E actually, the same, so effectively the same setup with an end-fed wire we're going to set up for him. So but anyway, there you go. So I'm going to be using this radio and trying to make some long distance contacts on 20 meters and over the weekend. The other thing I'm doing is let's turn that down, is this thing, the Panasonic DR31 or the RF3100L. I've been using this radio as a sort of bedside radio for the last couple of weeks, and I've attached my Sony AN71 real antenna to it. And but what's interesting is that previously, when I've been using the Texan PL880 upstairs, you probably remember I did some videos, some sort of bedside radio DX videos, and was copying some really good stuff on the Texan because the noise upstairs is very, very low indeed. But I'm not getting such good results on this Panasonic, and I've figured it out. It's because this radio is nearly 40 years old, and like some of my other radios of the same era, particularly the original 2001 Sony and the 5500M, they're very, very sensitive to external interference, to noise, electrosmog. Very, very susceptible, much more susceptible than any of my more modern radios. You know, the Sony 2001, the original Sony, is almost unusable indoors on the internal ferrite or the telescopic. And whilst this Panasonic isn't as bad as the Sony 2001, it is very susceptible to internal noise, particularly on lower frequencies. And although I want to sort of test this radio and prove how sensitive it is, you know, and to be fair, about a week ago, I did actually record a signal from Radio Tama on 4775 kilohertz, which with a piece of wire attached to this radio, which does demonstrate sensitivity, but the reception was poor because obviously it's just a piece of wire that's, you know, and that is picking up noise as well as the signal. Even though here is much quieter than my old QTH. So I was going to upload that video. In fact, I did upload it, but I haven't published it because the reception's there. It's audible. It's tangible. You can hear it, but it's quite poor, and it's almost doing this radio a disservice. So I haven't published it. What I'm going to do, and maybe on Sunday night, is I'm going to take this radio out to the woods, and I'm going to string up a long wire, a random wire. Excuse me, I've still got a cough from an episode of earlier in the week. I'm going to string up a random wire and sit there until the early hours of the morning and see what I can, and check out what I can hear. Give this radio a proper chance, really, to kind of demonstrate its performance, because I'm sure it's pretty good. Whether it's as good as the Yaesu, that's been discussed already. I'm not sure. Maybe not, but probably not. But I'm pretty sure that out in the woods, in a low noise environment with a long wire, it's going to perform well. And I just want to demonstrate that, really, because it sort of feels like it hasn't really been given a proper opportunity, because you can't. It doesn't have a BNC connector, so you can't attach a Welbrook loop to it, for example, or a Bonito Mega Loop. It's got lugs for an earth and a wire, which isn't ideal that's fine 38 years ago, but in today's electrical environment, it's just not going to work. So that's something I'm going to do, and if I may do that on Sunday evening. But let's just see how good the RF 3100 really is, because it should be good. I mean, look at the RF B65, one of the best ever portables of all time, best ever of all time. So let's see that. Let's sort of check that out, and hopefully come back with some decent DX. And then lastly, I'm still studying the book. I've read the book through. It's just over 100 pages, the full license manual, and some of it's pretty heavy going. My standard method of study is to then rewrite the book in my own words, but only the examinable sections of it. And the first chapter is on license conditions, and just summarising that into my own notes, the salient points that are examinable, is like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5 sides of A4. There's a lot to learn, but and some of it is quite hard going. But I want to get my full license and get that done as quickly as possible. Basically, take it off my desk, and then I haven't got to worry. Then everything's done. It's all done, and I really don't have to worry. I can just go ahead and take advantage of the extra power and all the other licensing conditions. Operate abroad is one thing that I really want to be able to do as well. So I'm going to carry. I don't have an exam date yet, which is good, no pressure, but I look forward to having completed writing my own version of the book, and then it's just a case of learning everything, really. Again, just keep reading and reading and rereading. So I'll be doing some of that. I've been a bit behind schedule because I've been feeling so ill this week. This is all I've done, but now I'm sort of starting to feel a bit better. I want to try and catch up, so that's something else I'll be doing as well. So that's about it. So there you go. Another week has gone by. This is weekend number 21. As I keep saying, I feel fortunate. I feel very fortunate this week to have got through a COVID test, and it's come and the result was negative. But it really does bring into, as I said, sharp relief that all of the measures that have been taken, all of the sacrifices that we've made, but we're lucky because we've got a wonderful hobby that can keep us occupied. It's just all worth it at the end of the day. It's just all worth it to keep safe. So, I wish you all good DX. Have a great weekend. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching it. Keep safe, everybody, and I'll no doubt catch you on the video next weekend. So and probably via the comments on the channel in between. So thanks, everybody. Keep safe, and 7-3.